In this video, we're going to talk about decimals, we're going to talk about fractions, we're going to talk about converting both decimals and fractions to percentages. So let's get started. Let's get started by talking about decimals. So when we're talking about decimals, the first thing that we need to do is we need to learn how to say our numbers. So if we have a value, and we'll just call the value x, so this would be the tenths place. So one decimal place over is the tenths place, so this would be read as x tenths. Well, if we had two decimal places, this would give us our hundredths place. So this would be read as XX hundredths. And if we had three decimal places, you probably guessed it, we would have our thousandths place. So this would be read as XXX thousandths. So let's convert decimals to fractions. So we're converting decimals to fractions. If we take the decimal 2/10, well, if we read it correctly, that really tells us what the fraction needs to be. Well, 2/10 is written as 2 divided by 10. But now remember, we always want to simplify, so we can say 2 goes into 2 once and goes into 10 5 times. So 2/10 can be reduced to 1/5. So if we did 35 hundredths, so that's going to equal 35 over 100. Now we can cancel out here, so we can say that 35 divided by 5 would be 7, and we can take our 100 and divide by 5, and that would be 20. So our answer could be reduced to 7 over 20. So if we took 67 thousandths, that would be written as 67 over 1,000. Okay, and unfortunately that will not reduce. Now, suppose we did some fractions to decimals. Okay, so if we took 1/4 and we wanted to convert that to a decimal, well, this is read as 1 divided by 4. So we're going to take our 4 and we're going to divide that into a 1, and we put our decimal place in the corresponding spot above it. Well, 4 will not go into 1, so we're going to have to add a 0 to the right of the decimal point. So 4 will go into 10 2 times, so 2 times 4 is 8. Subtracting 8 from 10, that leaves us 2, so we need to add another 0. So 4 will go into 20 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. So 1/4 could be written as 25 100ths. So let's do 2/3. Well, with 2/3, that's 2 divided by 3. So we're going to take our 3 and we're going to divide that into 2. Once again, we put our decimal places in the corresponding spots. Well, since 3 won't go into 2, we have to add a 0. Well, 3 will go into 20 6 times. So 6 times 3 is 18. Leaves us a 2 as a remainder. Well, we've got to add another 0. 3 goes into 20 6 times. So 3 times 6 is 18. So that leaves us a 2. Well, you probably notice here that we're getting into a loop where we keep winding up with a 2 and then dividing our 3 into 20. It's going to go 6 times, etc., etc. So we're going to wind up with a repeating decimal. So we've got decimal point and then 6 6 6 6 going on into infinity. So we could write this as a decimal point with a 6, and when we put the little line above it, that means that it's a repeating decimal. So now let's shift gears a little bit and let's go from decimals to percentages. So if we have 2/10, in order to convert this into a percentage, we have to move our decimal point 2 places to the right. So we're going to have to put in a 0. So that's going to equal 20%. If we have 34 hundredths and we move our decimal place 2 times to the right, that's going to give us 34%. And if we have 697 thousandths and we move our decimal place 2 times to the right, that's going to give us 69.7%. So now let's do maybe fractions to percentages. So if we start off with 1 divided by 4, so 1/4. Okay, so we're going to say divide our 4 into our 1. So 4 obviously will not go into 1, so we need to add a 0. So 4 will go into 10 2 times. So 2 times 4 is 8. Subtracting 8 from 10 leaves us 2. Need to add another 0. So 4 goes into 20 5 times. So we have no remainder. So 1/4 could be written as 0.25, which is 25 100ths. And by the very definition, 25 100ths is 25%, because percent means out of 100. So when we only have 2 decimal places, that's pretty easy to figure. That's just going to give us 25%. Let's try another one. So if we have 3 divided by 8, that's going to be dividing 8 into 3. So once again, 8 won't go into 3, so we need to add a 0. So 8 will go into 30 3 times. So 3 times 8 is 24. Subtracting 24 from 30 leaves us a 6. We have to add our 0. So 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. Subtracted from 60 leaves us a 4. Need to add one more 0. So 8 will go into 45 times. 5 times 8 is 40. So we have no remainder. So our answer is 375 thousandths. So now moving our decimal point 2 times, we're going to have 37.5%. So that's a wrap up on our decimals to fractions to percentages video. Thank you.